His alien employee's bold move left him breathless. Cosmic collisions, Doctor. Elias Nash stared at the application hovering in the holographic display. The credentials were impeccable, advanced degrees in quantum, physics and stellar cartography from the prestigious Centauri Academy, but the face looking back at him made his stomach tighten. Xenovarian. The purple-skinned woman's silver eyes seemed to pierce through the projection, challenging him. Director Harlow insists we need to diversify our team, his assistant Mira reminded him gently. And her qualifications are superior to all other applicants. Elias sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. Fine, schedule the interview. 3 days later, Lyra Thalasi glided into his office with the fluid grace characteristic of her species. The subtle luminescence of her violet skin caught the starlight streaming through the viewport behind his desk. Her silver hair was pulled back in an intricate braid, revealing the delicate patterns that traced her temples. "Dr. Nash," she said, extending her hand in the human custom. "I appreciate this opportunity." Her voice carried the melodic lilt of the Xenovarian tongue, but her standard was perfect. Reluctantly, Elias shook her hand, noting the warmth of her skin against his. "Your credentials are impressive," he began stiffly. "But Nova Station's Gravitational Research Division requires more than academic excellence. We need precision, discipline, and strict adherence to protocols." Lyra smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed like opals. "And creativity, Dr. Nash. The universe rarely conforms to our expectations." The interview proceeded with Elias growing increasingly unsettled by her unconventional approaches to theoretical problems. Yet her solutions were elegant, even brilliant. By the end, he knew he had no choice. "The position is yours," he said finally. "You start tomorrow." The following weeks proved his concerns justified. Lyra arrived early each day but rarely followed his meticulously outlined procedures. She rearranged the lab to improve energy flow and insisted on playing ancient Xenovarian music that she claimed harmonized with the quantum frequencies they studied. Most infuriating was her habit of challenging his theories, often correctly. The team, initially wary, increasingly turned to her for insights. "Your calculations are elegant," she told him one evening as they worked late. "The artificial night cycle darkening the station's exterior windows. But you're missing something fundamental about how gravity interacts with dark matter." "I've been studying gravitational anomalies for 15 years, Elias replied tersely. Lyra's silver eyes softened. "And I've been feeling them my whole life." Xenovarians perceive gravitational fields differently than humans. Before he could respond, an alert chimed. A new anomaly had appeared in the Cygnus sector, exactly where Lyra had predicted, not where his models had indicated. "How did you know?" he whispered. "There's more to understanding the universe than equations, Elias," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Sometimes you need to feel its pulse." As the holographic display illuminated her features in blues and purples, Elias realized that Lyra Thalasi might be the most dangerous person he'd ever met. Not because she challenged his science, but because she challenged everything he thought he knew about himself. At orbital perturbations, 2 months into Lyra's employment, Nova Station buzzed with excitement. Their team's discoveries about gravitational wave patterns had attracted attention from the Interstellar Science Consortium, and funding had doubled. Elias should have been elated, but instead, he found himself increasingly distracted by his purple-skinned colleague. "You're staring again," Lyra remarked without looking up from the holographic simulation she was manipulating. Her fingers moved with graceful precision through the 3-dimensional model, adjusting variables that shifted the projected gravitational field. Elias cleared his throat. "I'm observing your methodology." A knowing smile played at her lips. "Of course, Dr. Nash. The lab had transformed under her influence. Where once sterile workstations had been arranged in rigid rows, now the space flowed organically. Plants from 17 worlds thrived in carefully placed containers, purportedly to balance the electromagnetic environment. Most surprising was how productive the team had become. The Rigelian delegation arrives tomorrow, Elias reminded her, approaching her workstation. Their funding is crucial for the next phase. Lyra nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the swirling simulation. They'll be impressed. especially when we show them this. She expanded the model, revealing an unexpected pattern in the gravity waves they'd been studying. There's a resonance here that suggests these anomalies aren't random. They're communicating. That's impossible, Elias said automatically, but stepped closer. His arm brushed against hers, and he felt a strange tingling sensation where their skin connected. Impossible by current understanding, Lyra corrected. But the universe rarely confines itself to our limited perspectives. The door to the lab slid open, admitting Director Harlow. The older woman's eyes narrowed at their proximity before she composed her features. "Dr. Nash, a word?" In the corridor, Harlow didn't mince words. "The consortium is concerned about your closeness with the Xenovarian." "Lyra is a valued colleague," Elias said stiffly. "She's also from a species with unknown abilities and allegiances. The gravitational technology we're developing has defense applications." "Are you suggesting she's a spy?" Elias felt uncharacteristic anger rising. "I'm suggesting caution. Maintain professional distance. Remember where your loyalties lie." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The director's words echoed in his mind, clashing with his growing feelings for Lyra. Around midnight, he returned to the lab, surprised to find lights already glowing. Lyra stood before the main view screen, her profile outlined against star maps. She wore traditional Xenovarian attire, a flowing garment that shimmered with embedded crystalline structures. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked without turning. "How did you know it was me?" "Your gravitational signature," she said, finally facing him. "Everyone has one. Yours is distinctive." "That's not scientifically established," he said, but his protest lacked conviction. "There's much about my people's perception that isn't in your scientific journals." She approached, stopping just short of touching him. "Why are you fighting this connection between us, Elias?" Her directness took his breath away. "We're colleagues," he managed. "We're more than that." Her eyes held his. "You feel it too. This pull between us, it's like gravity itself." Before he could respond, the lab's emergency system activated, bathing them in pulsing red light. The station's AI announced, "Warning, gravitational anomaly detected. Unprecedented magnitude. All personnel implement safety protocols." Lyra grabbed his hand, her expression suddenly urgent. "It's happening sooner than I calculated. Elias, there's something I need to tell you about these anomalies, about why I really came to Nova Station." Event horizon. The gravitational anomaly struck Nova Station with unexpected force. Equipment tumbled from workbenches as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Elias grabbed the edge of a console to steady himself, watching in horror as a massive energy surge rushed through the primary systems. "We need to stabilize the core," he shouted over the wailing alarms. Lyra moved with astonishing speed toward the main reactor controls. "The anomaly is targeting our power signature," she called back. "It's not random. It's responding to our experiments." "That's not possible," Elias protested, though months with Lyra had taught him to question his certainties. "My people have known about these sentient gravity waves for generations," she replied, her fingers dancing across the emergency protocols. "That's why I came here. Your research was getting dangerously close to attracting their attention." Before Elias could process this revelation, a secondary power conduit ruptured overhead. Superheated plasma began venting into the lab. Lyra's eyes widened as she calculated its trajectory, directly toward Elias. Without hesitation, she launched herself across the room, tackling him out of the path of the deadly energy stream. They tumbled together, her body covering his protectively as they hit the floor. The heat singed the back of her tunic, but her quick action had saved his life. For a breathless moment, they lay entangled, her face inches from his. The weight of her body against his, the softness of her skin, the quickened pace of her breathing. Everything about her proximity sent Elias's heart racing. Her silver eyes locked with his, filled with concern and something deeper. "Are you hurt?" she whispered, making no move to distance herself. "No," he managed, acutely aware of every point where their bodies connected. "Lyra, what did you mean about sentient gravity waves?" She closed her eyes briefly. The anomalies you've been studying are actually manifestations of a non-corporeal species. My people call them the Void Weavers. They exist in the space between dimensions, communicating through gravitational fluctuations. Emergency teams rushed into the lab, interrupting their moment of intimacy. Reluctantly, Lyra rolled away, helping Elias to his feet, but her hand lingered on his arm. "Dr. Nash!" Director Harlow strode in, her face tight with suspicion. "What happened here?" "System overload from the anomaly," Elias explained quickly. "Lyra saved my life." Harlow's eyes narrowed as she observed the tension between them. "Report to medical, both of you." As they moved toward the door, she added, "And Dr. Nash, remember our conversation?" In the sterile quiet of the medical bay, a physician treated the minor burn on Lyra's back. Elias watched the gentle application of regenerative gel to her purple skin, his mind racing with questions. "Why didn't you tell me about these Void Weavers before?" he asked quietly. Lyra's expression grew troubled. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have reported me as a security risk?" When he didn't answer, she continued softly, "My assignment here wasn't just research. The Xenovarian Council sent me to prevent a catastrophe. Your experiments were creating a resonance pattern that the Void Weavers interpret as a threat. So you're a spy after all," Elias said, the hurt evident in his voice. "No," she reached for his hand, her touch sending that now familiar current through him. "I came as a scientist with critical information. But then I met you, and everything became complicated." Her fingers intertwined with his. "I've compromised my mission because of what I feel for you, Elias, and I can't bring myself to regret it." The medical officer discreetly stepped away, leaving them in a bubble of privacy. Elias found himself leaning toward her, drawn by forces as inexorable as gravity itself. "What exactly do you feel?" he whispered. Instead of answering with words, Lyra closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that answered everything. Quantum entanglement. The days following the anomaly incident transformed Nova Station. Security protocols tightened, and rumors circulated about the true nature of their research. But for Elias, the most profound change was personal. His relationship with Lyra had crossed an invisible boundary, creating something both exhilarating and terrifying. "The consortium is sending investigators," Elias informed Lyra as they worked late in his private lab. "A secure space they'd established away from prying eyes. Director Harlow believes someone sabotaged our systems." Lyra's expression remained carefully neutral as she adjusted the modified sensor array they'd built to monitor the Void Weaver's communications.
"She suspects me. I won't let her target you," Elias said firmly, moving to stand behind her.
He placed his hands on her shoulders, feeling the warmth of her purple skin through the thin fabric of her tunic. "But we need to understand these entities better if we're going to convince anyone." Lyra leaned back against him, her silver hair brushing his chin. "My people have interacted with the Void Weavers for millennia. We develop technologies that communicate rather than disrupt. That's what we need to implement here." "And that's exactly what we'll do," came a cold voice from the doorway. They turned to find Savan Kalis, the consortium's chief security officer, watching them with calculating eyes. Tall and imposing with cybernetic enhancements visible along his jawline, Kalis commanded an intimidating presence. "Officer Kalis," Elias acknowledged, stepping away from Lyra. "I wasn't aware you'd arrived." "Clearly," Kalis replied with a thin smile. "Dr. Thalasi, the consortium has questions about your presence on this project. Your credentials were verified, but your background contains gaps." "My background is classified by the Xenovarian Science Council," Lyra replied evenly, "as is standard for specialists in interdimensional physics." Kalis's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but your influence on Dr. Nash and this facility warrants investigation." He glanced meaningfully at the private terminal where they'd been working. "All research is to be conducted in the main lab effective immediately. Director's orders." After he left, Elias released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He knows something. Or suspects, Lyra said, her silver eyes troubled. Elias, there's more at stake than you realize. The consortium doesn't just want to study the Void Weavers. Some factions want to weaponize them. Later that night, in the privacy of Elias's quarters, they found brief respite from the mounting tensions. The room was dimly lit, stars streaming past the viewport as the station rotated on its axis. You never told me why Xenovarians can perceive gravitational fields, Elias said softly, as they lay together on his bed, his fingers tracing the luminescent patterns that adorned her arms. Lyra's expression softened. We evolved on a world with 13 moons. The constantly shifting gravitational tides shaped our physiology. She took his hand, guiding it to the side of her face. These markings aren't decorative. They're sensory organs. Elias explored the delicate patterns with newfound appreciation, causing Lyra to close her eyes in pleasure. And that's why you can feel these Void Weavers? Yes, she whispered. And it's why I can feel you so intensely. Your gravitational signature calls to me across rooms, through walls. She opened her eyes, the silver depths reflecting starlight. I've never experienced such a pull toward anyone. Their lips met in a kiss that deepened quickly, hands exploring with increasing urgency. The barriers between species seemed inconsequential as they discovered each other more fully, their bodies moving together in a dance as old as time, yet uniquely their own. In the aftermath, they lay entangled, the purple of her skin contrasting with his tanned complexion. We need to move quickly, Lyra said, tracing patterns on his chest. I've received a coded message from the Xenovarian Council. The Void Weavers are gathering in unprecedented numbers near the station. They sense something dangerous is coming. Before dawn, they slipped into the main lab, using Elias's override codes. Working swiftly, they reconfigured the primary sensors to Lyra's specifications. The holographic display came alive with new data, swirling patterns unlike anything Elias had seen before. There, Lyra pointed to a dense cluster. That's not a natural formation. Something's agitating them. The lab door slid open abruptly. Director Harlow entered, flanked by Kalis and 2 security officers with weapons drawn. I suspected treachery, Harlow said coldly. But not from you, Elias. This isn't what it looks like, Elias began, stepping protectively in front of Lyra. It's exactly what it looks like, Kalis countered, advancing with a data tablet. Unauthorized access, modified equipment, and collaboration with a foreign agent. Agent? Elias repeated incredulously. Kalis activated the tablet, displaying Lyra's personnel file with new classifications highlighted. Lyra Thalasi, intelligence operative for the Xenovarian Special Directive. Her mission was to infiltrate our research and sabotage it. Elias turned to Lyra, doubt flickering in his eyes for the first time. Is this true? Her silver eyes held his, unflinching. My mission was to prevent catastrophe, not cause it. The consortium's experiments are creating instability in the Void Weaver's dimensional fabric. If they continue, the resulting gravitational collapse could destroy this entire sector. Convenient explanation, Harlow said dismissively. Restrain them both. As the security officers moved forward, the station's alarms blared to life. The deck beneath them trembled violently. Warning, announced the AI. Multiple gravitational anomalies detected. Structural integrity compromised. The holographic display exploded with activity as dozens of Void Weaver signals converged on the station. Lyra's face paled. It's too late, she whispered. They're here. Stellar fusion. The Nova station shuddered under the assault of gravitational forces. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the facility as systems struggled to compensate. In the main lab, chaos erupted as equipment crashed to the floor and power fluctuated wildly. Evacuate all non-essential personnel, Director Harlow ordered into her comm unit, struggling to maintain balance as another shockwave hit. Kalis, secure the experimental data. This is what I warned you about, Lyra said urgently. The Void Weavers perceive your experiments as an attack on their realm. They're responding in kind. Elias moved to the primary console, rapidly analyzing the incoming data. She's right. These patterns match exactly what Lyra predicted. Director, we need to listen to her. Harlow hesitated, conflict evident in her expression as she evaluated the escalating crisis against her suspicions. Another violent tremor decided for her. "What do you propose?" she asked Lyra tersely. "We need to establish communication," Lyra replied, moving swiftly to the modified equipment they'd prepared. "Not through our technology, but through gravitational harmonics they can understand." Kalis stepped forward, objection clear on his face. "Director, we should deploy the prototype gravitational disruptors. Neutralize the threat." "That would be catastrophic," Lyra countered, her silver eyes flashing. "You'd trigger a cascading dimensional collapse." The overhead lights flickered ominously as the station's power grid struggled. A structural support beam groaned nearby. "We don't have time for debate," Elias interjected. "Lyra's approach is our only option." After a tense moment, Harlow nodded. "Proceed, Dr. Thalasi." Working with focused intensity, Lyra reconfigured the station's gravitational field generators, while Elias adjusted the quantum resonance frequencies according to her instructions. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, anticipating each other's needs without words, a dance of scientific precision born from their deeper connection. "The Xenovarian Council provided technology for this contingency," Lyra explained, as she inserted a crystalline device into the main system. "This will translate our intentions into gravitational language they can comprehend." "And what exactly are our intentions?" Harlow demanded. "Peace," Elias answered simply. "We acknowledge them as sentient beings and cease all invasive research." Kalis laughed bitterly. "Years of groundbreaking research abandoned because of invisible beings we can't even prove exist." "Your inability to perceive something doesn't negate its existence," Lyra replied calmly, making final adjustments. "Ready, Elias?" He nodded, their eyes meeting in a moment of perfect understanding. Together they activated the modified system. The effect was immediate and unexpected. The violent shaking subsided, replaced by a gentle, rhythmic pulsation that seemed to move through the station like breathing. The holographic display transformed, showing intricate patterns that shifted and flowed with mathematical beauty. "They're responding," Lyra whispered, her face illuminated by the display's glow. "They're curious." For the next several hours, Elias and Lyra worked tirelessly, adjusting frequencies and patterns in response to the subtle changes in the gravitational fields surrounding the station. Gradually, a form of communication emerged, abstract but undeniably intelligent. By the time the station's artificial dawn cycle began, the crisis had passed. The Void Weavers remained present but no longer hostile, their gravitational signatures forming what Lyra described as observational patterns. Director Harlow approached them, exhaustion evident in her features. "The consortium headquarters is demanding explanations. Kalis is preparing a report recommending the termination of this facility's research." "Then we'll need to make our case," Elias said firmly. "What happened here proves Lyra was right all along. We've made first contact with a non-corporeal species that exists in dimensions we barely understand. This is the discovery of the century." Harlow's expression softened slightly. "Your passion is noted, Dr. Nash, as is your partnership with Dr. Thalasi." She glanced between them knowingly. "The Xenovarian Council has already reached out, offering a joint research initiative. It seems they've been more forthcoming about your mission, Dr. Thalasi." After Harlow departed, Elias and Lyra found themselves alone in the observation dome. The transparent ceiling revealed the vast starscape above, now subtly altered by the visible gravitational patterns of the Void Weavers, visible only because of Lyra's modifications to the station's sensors. "What happens now?" Elias asked, taking her hand in his. Lyra's purple skin seemed to glow in the starlight as she turned to face him. "The Xenovarian Council will send a diplomatic delegation. There will be negotiations, new protocols established." "I meant with us," he clarified softly. Her silver eyes held his. "My mission here is complete, but my reasons for staying have evolved." She stepped closer, the warmth of her body radiating against his. "The gravitational pull between us is unlike anything in known physics, Elias. I've analyzed it extensively, and there's only one scientific conclusion." "And what's that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That some forces in the universe are meant to bring bodies together," she replied, a smile playing at her lips. Resistance is futile. Elias laughed softly, drawing her into his arms. For once, I won't argue with your conclusions. As their lips met, the Void Weaver's gravitational patterns shifted around the station, creating what Lyra would later describe as harmonics of approval. Above them, stars shimmered in the endless void, while below, two beings from different worlds found that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't gravity after all. It was love. In the months that followed, Nova Station transformed into the Interspecies Gravitational Research Center, with Elias and Lyra as its joint directors. Their pioneering work in communicating with the Void Weavers opened new frontiers in science and diplomacy, and in their private moments together, they continued to explore the mysterious and wonderful forces that had brought them together across the vastness of space, proving that, even in a universe governed by precise mathematical laws, the most profound equations were those of the heart.